Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's our 2025 Subaru Forester. We've owned it now for over a month, and having driven it more than 500 miles, I've discovered some issues and concerns that I already have with it. And it's actually our third Subaru in the family. I used to own a Crosstrek. I currently also have an Outback Wilderness. So we personally drive Subarus, plus I've driven a few dozen of these on reviews. So overall, I do think they're a good product. But like every other automaker, every other model, they're not perfect. They have their share of issues. And I think if you guys are going to be spending $30,000 to $40,000 on one of these, you should know what those issues are so that you're a more informed buyer and you make a better decision for you. So if these issues, you can live with them, great. If you can't, well, at least you know now rather than waiting until after you've purchased one. And I have noticed a few of these issues shared by other owners on the forums, maybe in the last couple days. They've been popping up more and more. But this is my list of issues, this is my set of gripes, and if you get anything out of this video, please consider liking it so more people get aware of this video, because it'll get spread and shared. Comment your thoughts and opinions below, whether you agree or disagree, and what your experiences have been, and subscribe if you want to watch more stuff. Otherwise, let's get right into these 7 gripes. The first main issue I have with these is the powertrain. Currently, the Forester for 2025, it's only sold in one powertrain, at least in the US spec models. And what that is a 2.5-liter boxer engine. It's basically just retuned from the last generation, so it makes a tiny bit more low-end torque and loses a tiny bit of higher RPM horsepower. But 180 peak horse, 176 pound-feet of torque, those are literally power levels straight out of the 1990s from 30 years ago. It's not that adequate for today, especially when we know that Subaru could easily swap the turbo model into this as an XT Forester. I have that in my Outback. It makes a big difference. It can accelerate 0 to 60 about 150 feet faster than this can. So if you're pulling onto a busy highway, you need 150 feet less than this one to get up to speed, accidentally almost getting into an accident if you don't give yourself enough room or you don't have a big enough gap for you to shoot in between. So that's one of the concerns, but more than that, these are going to have a hybrid trim level coming out pretty soon, and we don't really know a lot of spec about that. There's all the assumption that because Toyota owns 20% of Subaru, it's going to be the Toyota RAV4 2.5-liter, 200 horsepower, hybrid, naturally aspirated motor. And I do think that that could be a good option. Other than the ease of maintenance on this one is really good. And I don't know if that's confirmed yet about the hybrid from Toyota. But what I don't like is that the last hybrid that Subaru had, at least in the United States, was in the Crosstrek in the 2nd generation, and it was a complete failure. It only sold a couple thousand units total. In fact, I was able to find one of those and give it a test drive, and it was awful. You lost about 6 cubic feet of room in the cargo capacity area for the battery pack. It weighed a couple hundred pounds more. It hardly had more horsepower and torque that you could feel after all the weight additions than the 2-liter, and it barely got better MPG either. So I'm not certain that Subaru knows what they're doing with hybrids, and I don't know that it's been confirmed that they are going to have the Toyota hybrid. But right now, we don't know what the future is going to look like for the powertrain of the Forester. I just know that this one is straight from the 1990s, and although it's really good, it's really refined, it really just isn't that powerful. And if you have the vehicle loaded down, weighted down, if you're trying to tow, if you're going up a mountain pass, you're not going to have a very good time. Otherwise, the transmission is smooth, it does a good job with the adaptive features, and the rest of it, the powertrain behind the engine, behind those horsepower numbers, or when you're not needing peak power, it's really nice, it's really smooth, but it does need more power. And the engine kind of leads me into my next point, which is miles per gallon. On my first tank of gas, I shared that this had a true MPG of about 26.5, which it was 1 MPG less hand calculated at the pump than the actual average. So right now I'm probably averaging a high 28 or maybe 29 flat. But right now you can see I am getting about 30 miles per gallon per the computer reading, which is right in between what this is rated for the city and highway average, which I will say it has been doing a lot of in town and out of town in the country. Not really any interstate 80 miles per hour, but a lot of 60 miles per hour all the way through around town. So it's getting what it should be for MPG. But for this having only 180 horsepower and getting barely 30 miles per gallon, assuming the computer is accurate, which it's slightly generous, that's basically what I could get in my Outback Wilderness, which has a more aggressive tire, a more aggressive lift, and it has over twice as much torque at the lower RPM. So I feel like this should be getting a little bit better MPG for the power level that you have. And the third issue is some of the higher end features, or what Subaru is trying to give you on the higher end features, just aren't as good as you'd expect them to be. So we're going to start by going into the driver's side. Look how big the windows are. Obviously they're huge. But let's do this. Let's turn on the power, the accessory power right there, and watch how slowly the window goes down. I'm not sure what I'm pushing. Obviously, it's the wrong button. There we go. Actually, that looks faster right now than it did when I had come up with this. So I don't know if the power or the voltage is inconsistent on the windows, but it just felt like when I was at a drive-through picking up some food through the window, it just felt like it was going down really slowly. And I'm not sure if that's because the window is very tall vertically. It is a large window compared to a lot of other vehicles, or if it just, you know, it has a lot of glass to move, or if it just is slower than other vehicles. But I found that kind of surprising, but on camera just now, it didn't really prove the point. So the other points are the leather wrapped wheel doesn't feel as fancy as I thought it would. It feels kind of dried out, like I already have to put some leather lotion or something on it. It's not nearly as plush and soft feeling as, say, the Touring XT Outback that I reviewed just recently. And then the other points are the wireless charger for a lot of people isn't working very well. Although most people aren't sharing on the forums what phones they have, if they're in a case or not, but I know it doesn't seem to work very well for us. And in fact, I removed the wireless charger from my Outback because it totally failed and wasn't working at all. And then the other concern is the heated seats. There's 3 settings, but even on the high, I can hardly feel them at all. It's literally like they're not working. There's just enough that I know that the fuse is intact and it's not failing. But the heated seats literally don't work in these. So if you guys are going to go test drive one of these, turn on the heated seats, leave it on stage 3, and let me know in the comments afterwards if you could feel any heat coming from it. Some people have said that the older Foresters have done a good job. My Outback actually blew the fuse for the heated seat, so mine completely stopped for a while. And because those weren't super strong either, it took me a little while to completely realize that they were out. But this Forester, a lot of people are also sharing that they haven't felt really any heat from these from the factory, and that's a shame. Subaru should fix that. My next few points will go a little bit faster, and this next one is the blind spot monitoring system. You can see these new generation of Foresters and Crosstreks, they just have the little nub. It's not the whole big plastic piece that it used to be, which was larger in surface area, so easier to see. That thing is huge compared to an ant. It's tiny compared to the actual size in the mirror. Seriously, look at that. It's like nothing in comparison. Why would Subaru not make that bigger? And then when there is a car in your blind spot, so say you're putting on your left turn signal, the car's right here, you're trying to move over, it doesn't beep at you. It flashes at you, but it doesn't make an audible noise. It probably would if you cross the line, but that's more of the lane keep assist type of features anyways. I feel like if you're starting to turn or shift lanes, it should be beeping at you. It should also be more noticeable, especially with how much Subaru cares about safety. And then for issues 5 and 6, we're gonna have to take a look at the rear. I'm just gonna use the remote for the power liftgate since our premium has that optional package. And we're gonna have to go down to the spare tire, which on this, and remember, this is a Forester. This vehicle is literally named after the outdoors, so you'd expect it to be extremely outdoor capable. You do have some storage down here. You do have a few basic tools like to wind up your scissor jack and everything, but you only have a temporary spare tire. Seriously, how much more would it have cost for Subaru to put a full-size spare under here? Probably not much more, especially when the spare is a Falcon, which in general is a really good brand. Thankfully, you do have the eye bolt, you have a screwdriver, you have all the basic tools, but I can't imagine it would have been more than a $20 or $30 price premium for you to have an actual full-size spare tire in the back of your Forester. Think about all the other crossovers that used to offer that before cost savings was as big of a problem as it is now for everyone trying to save a buck. Even the older CRVs, a competitor to this, used to have a full-size spare tire on the hatch. But the Forester for 2025, it still doesn't have a full-size spare. Only the Wilderness, Outback, and Forester get that. And then issue number 6 is to do with the power liftgate. If you have the power liftgate, some of the options won't. Like if you have a base model or if you have a premium without the optional package that includes blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. But you'll notice, compared to the roof rails, it does open maybe a foot and a half higher, and it actually sticks out pretty far. When the vehicle hatch is open, it's probably at least a foot and a half out, maybe almost 2 feet. And between the swing, which I'll show you that right now, when we lower it down, let's see, it might actually arch out a little bit further. I think it does just a little bit. So you got to be careful because even though this is a compact crossover, it's fairly well sized. A lot of garages, especially if your house is more than 30 years old, this is actually going to be really tight, really snug inside of your garage. And you want to make sure that you don't accidentally lay on the key, push the button on the remote that pops open the hatch and hit your ceiling. hit your garage door. You know, if you have to park it next to other stuff, if you don't have a lot of room by the garage door, you need to be really careful with that. A few of you guys have commented on that being an issue, and you guys can adjust the height of it. But seriously, it's not like you're gonna set it permanently to only open 3 inches so that it can't possibly come up and hit anything. That's not practical. That's just gonna get in your way. So you do need to be careful that you don't accidentally open it with the key by accidentally bluntly pushing one of these buttons on the flat face of it while it's in your garage. I have never done that on this one or on our Outback, but I have heard it lock and unlock just from laying on the couch and leaning onto the remote. So it could happen. You don't want to damage your vehicle and your house in the process. And last but not least, has to relate to the auto start stop system. So right now you can see I'm leaving it turned on. I have the vehicle in drive, and I'm just gonna drive around a little bit. It doesn't always work as consistently when your air is on because it needs the power, and it's gonna quickly drain your battery and your electrical supply if you leave that running. But let's get out onto the main road. And a couple different times I'm gonna go down to a stop, and then I'll firmly push the brake completely, and let's see if it works. Let's see if it works. My foot is literally pushing into the firewall and nothing. I'm wondering now how long this is gonna take. Or do I just drive away and try it again in a few minutes or a couple seconds for, you know, the sake of filming. I don't wanna bore you guys too much. But basically my issue with the auto start stop system, because I realize I haven't said anything yet, is it doesn't feel integrated into this system, and it doesn't feel any better for this new generation. Subaru revised the tuning on this car, but they haven't mechanically changed or altered the auto start stop system to make it feel more in sync with the vehicle, with the engine, for it to be less aggressive, less abrasive. Yeah, and it's not even working right now. It's inconsistent when it does. I usually just have the muscle memory to turn it off and back on, but I'm not impressed with the system. And I think Subaru, if they're gonna use it on everything, if they're gonna try to save you 3 gallons of gas over the lifetime of this vehicle and, you know, turn the starter on and off 1,000 extra times, I think it should be a smoother process and not a mildly unpleasant process. Okay, there it goes. So I'll be quiet so you guys can hear this. Yeah, it's just a little bit more rough, a little bit more abrasive than I would think it should be. Anyways, let's wrap this up. Anyways, guys, that is my list of 7 issues or 7 gripes with this all new Forester. Do we regret buying it? Absolutely not. Do I think it's a killer vehicle, a steal at, you know, the low $30,000 ballpark? Yeah, I absolutely do. But like every vehicle, it's not perfect. There are trade-offs. You know, Subaru engineering and software isn't always perfect, and the physics of what this vehicle isn't perfect either. I do understand a few of the issues like auto start stop and the spare tire. Some of those are a cost-saving measurement versus Subaru redesigning things, redesigning the foam around the spare tire, redesigning the auto start stop system to actually feel integrated into the vehicle. Like, there's a lot that could be better if Subaru put more money on that, but that would ultimately raise the price for the consumer. Is that worth it to you guys? Does it not bother you? I'm genuinely curious, so please comment below. Anyways, if you made it till the end, thanks for watching. I hope this video is informative to you, and if you got anything out of it, please consider liking it. And until next time, I wish you guys the best. Take care. See ya.